Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm so glad Linda Keller is able to join us for this discussion on computer-based testing. Thank you, Linda.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to some information about computer-based testing. And thanks for having me and inviting me, Astrid and Patsy. So I do like to know the group that I'm talking to. So if people on this next slide here, I want to find out who's in the room. If you can share in your chat your current role in ABE, the program that you're working with, and then how many months or years you've been in adult education. See a lot of familiar names out here. All right, some new programs jumping on board the online testing bandwagon too. Awesome. Okay, Jamie. There's Minnesota. All right. All right, who else do we have in the room? Awesome. So, okay. So the next, I also want to gauge everybody who's here. Let's find out where everybody is. There's a couple questions that I'd like you to answer. Just find out where you are at with computer-based online testing in your agency. So do you already have an account for DRC with TABE Online? And if you do you know who your agency's main point of contact is?
And you will need to scroll through the questions to see them all.
Yeah. And then there's information about CASAS and e-testing and TOPS Pro and so forth. So yeah, if you could just take a minute or so to provide some feedback, that would be great.
So we're starting to see those come back, but we'll give people another couple moments.
I know there's a few seasoned people here that their agencies use it, but depending on which series you're using too, that provides good information here too, as to guide the discussion. So
All right, I've got about 3/4, no, 80% have completed. Should I go ahead? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll.
thank you, Patsy.
And I'll share those results. Can you see those?
30%, yes.
So that's about
Okay.
Yep. Pretty good spread.
Yeah, it is a variety. So in thinking about today's session, I planned for folks that knew just coming in at ground level, and I planned for seasoned and some experienced users too. So we're gonna have you engage in one more slide. I got the next slide here is I want to know what questions brought you to today's meeting too. So if you could put questions in the chat about why you're here. Well, you know, what is it that you wanted to gain from today's meeting? So while you're typing in the chat for me, I'm gonna do a quick review of information that was gathered from a survey that was done this spring for CASAS e-test users and TABE online users. There was a survey done to find out about online test usage. And then which programs are using them. With that process, there's contacts with both TABE Online and CASAS that Marty and I are in contact with, and they provide us feedback on programs who have accounts who are actively using them here in Minnesota. And there's quite a large list here of CASAS e-test users here in Minnesota. There are some new programs who have just began using it, and those are the programs that we have new indicators behind each of their names. So some programs are newer than others. Some programs have been using it, under 6 months, and some programs have been using it for several years. So when online testing first started and folks were joining MDE meetings, I would always try to pull information out of folks that I knew were using it if they would share, but there's a lot of users out there. We're just going to say that, and it's good. It's good information. So this is the list of CASAS e-test users. The next slide has information about who's using TABE Online here in Minnesota. Adult Options is a newer program using it, but all of these programs are currently using it and have active accounts. There's actually quite a few agencies who have accounts in Minnesota, but that doesn't mean that they're technically using their TABE Online accounts. So that being said, everybody got to introduce themselves. So I'll share a little bit about why I believe I was invited to be part of the meeting. I've been working in adult ed since the mid-90s with support roles with intake and testing. My current role, my full-time role is Accountability and Test Coordinator with Metro North. So I basically manage all things with data collection and testing and all the training in SID, all the reporting that comes out of SID. But I also serve on the assessment team as a certified trainer. So I deliver both CASAS and TABE implementation trainings and recertification trainings since about 2008 with Marty Olson. The website for the training grant is listed here. So for those of you who don't know a lot about Metro North, I thought I'd share kind of just some insight because I've been here for so long. I've been around for a couple test conversions over the years, but we have classes in 12 different locations and they're held year round, and we serve 8 school districts. Our average enrollment is about 4,000 enrollees, with about 3,000 of those being participants. All of our enrollment since COVID happened is done through our website with Metro North using the online interest form link. All of our locations provide ongoing open enrollment. So we're enrolling and starting students on a weekly basis at every one of our locations. The weekly enrollment testing happens at all of our locations, and it may be paper pencil or it may be online. And our Blaine, Brooklyn Center, and Columbia Heights sites all provide enrollment testing by invite only because it's online testing, and we do testing with either TABE or with CASAS e-testing. So with the experience that I've had and with helping folks here in Minnesota get started with online testing, there is not a one size fits all, and you can see that from Metro North sites based on the type of testing that's done. And it depends on who's being served there, what technology is available, how the enrollment process happens. But like our Anoka Ramsey Community College that delivers DebEd Math, we do TABE 11-12 online, and we do TABE remote online with 11-12 also. Same thing with our Anoka Technical College. We deliver TABE 11-12 online and also TABE remote online testing. Our Blaine site delivers TABE 11-12 online, and we do remote online also from this location. And we do STEPS e-testing online. And next week, we're actually pilot remote testing with CASAS goals online. That's relatively new. We use paper pencil testing at all of our corrections locations. We do have 4 corrections locations. We have the one at Sheriff's Jail, Anoka County Workhouse with Huber, and then our Isani County Jail, as well as our Sherburne County Jail. Inmates do not have access to anything technology related, so they still do paper pencil at those locations. Brooklyn Center has access to technology, and with Centennial, they have access to technology, but they deliver paper pencil and e-test online, and that's due to how their enrollment is set up. They do same day enrollment paperwork and testing. So that's why they're doing paper pencil during the enrollment process on the day of. CASAS e-testing and TABE online is delivered at Columbia Heights. Elk River again does same day enrollment. So they do paper pencil and they do online listening to groups. And then our St. Francis Adult Ed Center does same day enrollment. And so they do paper pencil also. So that being said, I need to make sure, and I look at my notes because I made sure to put a lot of notes that I thought folks would find helpful. With our enrollment process and folks completing learner entry forms, we have a little bit of a lag time for when we get the learner entry form versus when students are scheduled for testing. So we developed some local processes to help with that, allowing data entry staff to look up past testing for folks so they knew that they weren't duplicating testing from SID if there was a person that was in person search, or so forth. So does anybody have any other questions at this point? Okay. So then if you're interested in getting started with TABE online, some things that you should consider is that you need to make sure any staff that want to deliver TABE online needs to have attended a TABE implementation training here in Minnesota in the last 5 years. Think about who you're serving in your program. If your program currently just serves ABE students or high school equivalency students, you'd be a good candidate. So if your program currently uses TABE 11, 12 paper pencil, and if your program has technology that meets the required DRC technology system requirements. So in this slide, there's a link to a technology system requirements document. That being said, they're updating that technology system document every several months. It's like 4 or 5 months they're updating that. However, with doing TABE online, when Metro North first got started, we were required to have a central office server that basically served as the server for the testing devices. That is no longer the case. So if you wanted to deliver TABE online at your agency on site, you would just install a shortcut URL. And I don't know if I included that in the supplement or links document, but I will after today's session. I will add it to that so you have access to that URL that you can use and just install a shortcut on any devices that you want to deliver TABE online with. So, I clicked on the link. Just a second, let me go back. How do I get back to this now? I'm gonna apologize. I love technology. How about you?
In the meantime, Linda, I did just drop that resources doc in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back. So the next steps would include, if you're interested in TABE online, you need to watch the TABE online overview video, and there's a link in there for that. I will not click on that. A big thing to consider if you wanted to use TABE online, you need to look at your annual usage of test deliveries. So in an entire program year, you need to think about how many subjects you're testing in during enrollment, and then the subjects that you're testing during post-testing, and then the frequency of post-testing being done. There's actually reports that you can use in SID to take a look at that to just get an entire count of all the testing that you would want to order. But when you order tape online tests, they have to be used within a year from the date of purchase. So that's just something that you need to consider. So if you place an order, there's a link in here for the online order form, and then you choose your agency main point of contact. If you're a newer program and you want to use this, you have to choose a main point of contact. So with new customers ordering, it's a $1,500 minimum to order to place tests, and that's about 350 tests. If you're an existing TABE Online customer and your agency already has an online account open, it's a $500 minimum, which equals to around 120 tests. However, if you're interested in doing a pilot locally and you would like to get, say, 100 tests, because you know that you could use those up throughout the course of the year, MDE has a TABE Online account from a bulk purchase that was made, and there's still additional TABE Online tests that are in that account. You would just need to contact Marty Olson if you are interested in that, and then we would work with DRC to transfer any of those online tests to an account that has already been opened with your agency. So any questions with that? All right. So the rest of the launch steps, and these are things that I've talked regularly about to programs about with that they need to consider. So because TABE Online is another data system, you need to be able to create student records in their system in order to deliver tests. But the information that needs to be added on a student record in DRC for TABE Online is much less information than what is going into SID. So the only things needed are going to be the first and last name, a date of birth, a gender, and then potentially a SID badge ID to just create a test taker's account. So, you know, be thinking about if you wanted to do same day testing for folks as they're enrolling, this would be an easy thing to do. But then review practices from other programs when creating test sessions in DRC, because that's something that Metro North, we had to learn going through. It was a little difficult to learn this, I'm just going to say, because when we first started creating test sessions, we didn't have a best practice in place because there weren't many programs using it, and we were basing some of the decisions on the information that DRC was sharing during webinars, but it wasn't from local users. So that being said, talk to other programs who have already launched TABE Online, and then talk to them about different practices that they set up locally to just make it work for your program. All right. So Metro North startup history, and I wanted to share a little bit about this because for those of you who haven't started, I'll be brief with this, but in 2010 ish, I think that was about when it happened, but Julie Dinko opened Metro North's TABE Online account for us because she was interested in exploring online testing. And then nobody did anything with that account after Julie left for MDE. So in about 2016, 2017, Metro North was one of two programs. The other one was Minneapolis, who agreed to do some pilot testing with TABE Online. And we got 600 tests at Metro North, and Minneapolis also got 600 tests. But then both, there were some Minneapolis staff, and I was one of the people from Metro North that got sent to TABE Online training at Minneapolis. And during that training, the DRC rep at the time just advised us if we could hold off launching, because they were in the process of updating their system for testing delivery, and they said the newer system was easier to use, and so Metro North waited. Minneapolis did not, so they they got to learn the old system and then learn the new system too. Dave Haugen was part of that pilot. And so he knew the old system and then he knew the new system too. So, but in 2017, we had, we had the change from 9 to 10 to 11 to 12, and then TABE Online transitioned to DRC Insight, and then the DRC rep changed for Minnesota, and we just lost some good season support that we had. So Metro North didn't even start testing until March of 2019. And when we did, we pilot tested during enrollment testing with the Blaine site only. We chose to just have the proctors and the intake staff trained. Didn't give anybody else access. The data team who created all the learner enrollments was the ones that were creating the records, the student records. And then we created test sessions in DRC using the dates of the testing that was delivered, but that wasn't really a best practice to use. And I had stated this earlier, there weren't really many programs using it. So we didn't know what we didn't know. But then COVID happened, and we had a couple years to think about how we were going to relaunch. And when we did in 2021, we relaunched again at the Metro North Blaine site, did some collaboration and just talking with Minneapolis, because we knew that they were testing during COVID and people were coming in on site to test. But we created new test sessions, and we created everything with locators and subjects. So that's the testing that was delivered was 11 reading plus a locator, and an 11 math plus a locator, and an 11 language plus a locator. So everybody got locators. If we found that they had 11 TABE 11 results living in SID, we also created test sessions that were 12 reading plus locator, 12 math plus locator, 12 language plus locator. So testing wasn't duplicated. And that was a thing that was a practice that we learned from Minneapolis. So that was a very good practice. We still use it this day. And like the lessons that we've learned is just name the DRC test session what subject and version it will deliver. So we created ongoing test sessions for either 6 months or a year. So they're easy to find, easy to use. We're delivering TABE online at 3 different locations. So each building, if you have multiple buildings in your agency account, you could do an abbreviation of the name of the building name on the beginning of the test session. And then with the post-testing sessions that we created them what they deliver. So we have a reading 11M, we have a math 11 MD or whatever level, but we're intentional when we create those. And when we add the settings to those test sessions, they intentionally deliver just that subject, just that level, just that version. There's also filters in DRC where sometimes when you land on the test session landing page, you can see every single test session and it's kind of information overload, but there's filters that you can use. And I think, like, I just want to see reading tests. If I just want to see reading tests, I can put reading in the filter and it'll only pull up the reading test it is that I want to look at. And then something else that we learned, when you don't want test sessions that are no longer being used, say you have the one that the end date has passed on the test session, I rename those for our entire program so they fall off the list when you're doing a filtered list. So with test sessions, a student can only be registered in a test session and take a test in that session one time. And so if you're familiar with how those test sessions work, that it'll only deliver it once to that specific student, but you can create additional test sessions that'll deliver the same subject, same level, same everything, but just a different date range. So any questions with that? Okay. So CASAS e-testing and TOPS Pro. So I want people to put in the chat if they know the difference between CASAS testing and TOPS Pro. Do you know the difference? Okay. Nope. Okay. Okay. So, and this is where some of the questions come in. So when you refer to CASAS testing and TOPS Pro, they're both part of the CASAS testing delivery system. TOPS Pro, I compare it to California's version of SID. TOPS Pro is the platform that stores all the student demographic and testing data. It's also designed to record attendance. Minnesota programs have not used it to record attendance because we have SID. It's designed to extract federal reporting. Minnesota doesn't use it because we have SID. Most of the programs that I know in Minnesota are using it on a very limited basis just for testing delivery, and it does work just for testing delivery. CASAS e-testing is the platform that is used to launch the test sessions for whatever it is that you want to deliver at your program. And you just have to be very specific, and there's some questions in here that I have just to be thinking about the names of test sessions. So who are the learners in your program if you're interested in CASAS e-testing? You know, does your program currently use CASAS steps, and do they use goals and goals too? And do you or your staff who are interested in having a CASAS e-test account have an account created on the CASAS website yet? So do many of you already use steps and goals too in your programs? If you could put in the chat. Yes, Clark. TOPS Pro is like SID, and CASAS e-testing is a testing platform. Yes, exactly. So that being said, like I said with the information about TABE Online, if you plan to deliver testing to students using CASAS e-tests, they'll need to have an account in SID, but they'll also need to have an account created in the TOPS Pro system. So these are the basic things to be thinking about. They've got what's called a going live checklist that CASAS has developed, but I added some additional information into their going live checklist. But the first thing that folks need to do, if you don't already have a CASAS e-test account created, you just need to make sure that you have the system requirements that'll meet each online application. And there's links in this PowerPoint for each of the system requirements, what's needed. I tell everybody you can launch CASAS e-test, you can start a test session from any device. However, if you are using TOPS Pro and whoever is creating the student records, they're going to need to have a PC. So that being said, you need, you know, at least one person in your organization to have a PC to have access to TOPS Pro. So if you're considering using this, you need to make sure that, yes, you can launch a test session, but how many testing devices do you have that are available for students that meet those system requirements? So you can have one, or you can have 100, or you can have 1,000. You just need to make sure that they're compatible. And I already explained what TOPS Pro was and then why we need to use it. With setting up your agency account, at least one person from your program needs to enroll and complete the information that is on the bottom of this slide. So you have to complete an e-test agency agreement if you don't already have an agency account. One person, at least one person from your program, has to complete that Module 1 implementation basics. And if you already attended a session here in Minnesota at one of the state-sponsored events, Summer Institute, or if you had Marty or I come out to your agency to complete, the CASAS implementation training, you would have that information completed already. So, so once those two steps have been done with the implementation, somebody from your agency, at least one person, there's some stars here on the different modules that need to be completed, but you need to complete a module 2, and you can do it live or you can do it through the CASAS training portal. But then each person who you want to have access to be able to start and stop a test is going to need to take an e-test proctor certification training through the training modules on the CASAS site. And then if you want a staff member to be able to edit any of the test session settings that are in there, they would also need to take the coordinator certification. So they'll have multiple certifications. And like I stated earlier, TOPS Pro is designed to be a reporting tool for the state of California, and it's very extensive. There's a lot of trainings that you need to take one time in order to get access to it, but just keep in mind that there's a lot of features that are in there that you're not going to need to access to deliver e-testing, but you will just need to get familiar with them. And with those test certification trainings, you will become familiar with them. The trainings are not that long. I believe they take under an hour to do like each of them. So with the exception of the implementation training, that's going to take 3 hours to do. So after you have all that training done, if your agency doesn't already have an account, you're going to order some e-tests and you're going to select which type of TOPS Pro Enterprise package that you want to use. Keep in mind, you only have to order 100 tests from CASAS in order to create an account. That's it. The bonus to the tests, if you order them and you don't get launched, within the next year, those tests are not going to expire. They don't. So the WTUs, that's what they're called, web testing units. You can use them for any of the step series for reading or for listening, and you can use them for the goals reading and the goals 2 math. So you can use them for anything. And then there's 2 different options with the type of tests when you order them. There's the TE Basic package, which will provide you individual reports for individual test takers. And if you order the TE Enhanced package, that gives you a little more options and bells and whistles, we call them, to allow you to do group reporting if you wanted to do group reporting for an entire building, for an entire class, and so forth. So there were tests that were ordered the last, I believe, 3 years from excess funds from the supplemental service grant. Those tests have all been distributed to agencies who requested that they were going to be starting with CASAS Online. And they were distributed just this fall. So there's no remaining tests that are living in the MDE account. But, if that's something that you're interested in, Marty and I can help you go through that process so that you can get your order placed and get through the training. So once all those pieces are taken care of, you would just email the golive@casas.org, and then they would set up your online account in TOPS Pro. So after all this, it looks like there are a lot of steps to go through in order to get there, but I can't say it enough. It's worth it because it does save on staff time. So after you get your access to your account and you're connected to your online account, you're going to take into consideration if you're going to be delivering e-testing at 1 location, 2 locations, or at 10 locations. And if you have multiple buildings and multiple sites you plan to deliver e-testing on, you'll need to have what's called your data manager. She's like your main point of contact, or they're your main point of contact in your agency. They would create those sites and buildings in TOPS Pro. And again, if you have 1 building, it's easier, but if you have multiple buildings like we did at Metro North, I've added all those buildings that deliver e-testing into our TOPS Pro account. And then you're going to need to take into consideration how many people you want to have access to TOPS Pro, and how many staff members you're gonna want to be able to launch a test session in your agency. So take that into consideration. You would create user accounts for them in TOPS Pro, and then they would also need to take the CASAS implementation training, and they would need to take the CASAS e-test proctor training too. So CASAS calls the main point of contact a data manager. The data manager has all the permissions to do all the work in TOPS Pro, but eProctor and eCoordinator also have access to TOPS Pro, and they can create student records and they can add test sessions too. So there's a lot more permissions that the data manager has, and it's just more restricted for people that are just launching test sessions. So now that you got through that step, you're going to look and see what you have for your devices that you're going to use. Metro North uses different devices at all of our locations. We have a computer lab at the Blaine location, and we also have about, I believe, 250 Chromebooks that we worked with Anoka Hennepin Tech's, the tech department, in order to have that installed on the Chromebooks, and it's called kiosk mode. This same step has taken place at a couple different Metro North locations where they've had access to Chromebooks. However, if you don't have Chromebooks or access to Chromebooks, there is a URL that can be installed on whatever devices it is that you're going to be delivering your testing on. And again, you would just work with your tech department in order to use the URL. And that's something I will add to that resource document too, because there's additional support kind of documents that CASAS has created to help your IT departments know what it is that they need to add to specific testing devices. So some more of the steps include CASAS tech support. Once everything's open in your account, there's test session templates for agencies that they preload into your account. Test session templates are basically they're test sessions that deliver steps series, and I think there's about 4 or 5 that they actually load into your test session template menu. But then based on those templates that they give you, you can customize any test sessions to deliver what it is that you want in your program. So be thinking about what series and what subjects do you deliver during intake? Do you deliver reading? Do you deliver math? Do you deliver both? For your English language learners, do you deliver reading? Do you deliver listening? Or do you deliver both? So that's something you have to take into consideration. But the next step would be, and these are some of the questions that we've gotten from different programs. How do I get all of the students that I have living in SID into TOPS Pro? It's called import. It's an export from SID, and it's an import that goes into TOPS Pro. It's very seamless, but there's some different steps that you'll need to take in order to do that, and CASAS tech support will work with you to do that. But there is a link that is in the resource document that I provided to. There was a session that Jenny Schluckebeyer and Marilyn Dvorak and I did Summer Institute last year when we did it in person up in St. Cloud or Way Park, that there were different documentation or documents that we all contributed to, and the steps that you needed to do in order to do some of these items for past records, getting them into TOPS Pro. The really big thing, and I highlighted this, is you're just going to need to come up with some consistent processes locally as you're thinking about new students that are coming in and the turnaround time that you have from enrollment to when you're going to test them, of how to get them into TOPS Pro. And you can do it manually, or you can do it with an import export. Metro North does it with an import export feature because we have anywhere from 75 to 125 new learners enrolling weekly. We have 3 data staff that are they're also doing testing, enrollment testing weekly. we initially, when we first started for the first year, we were doing everything manually for new students, but that, for about the last year and a half, we do everything import and export. So, makes it very, very seamless. We do it once a week. Friday afternoons at like 1 is when we do it, and it takes us 15 minutes. So, it's very slick. So,
So I'm gonna just interrupt because you've had a couple questions in the chat. I wonder if this would be a good time to check those. And also Jamie had their hand up.
okay.
Jamie, I don't know what your question was,
Yeah,
but do you want to go
a
ahead?
few slides back, Linda, you had told us that that tests expire after a year,
Yes.
but then on a slide later, it said that they never, something doesn't expire. I'm getting things mixed up. Where
TABE,
what expires, what doesn't?
TABE tests expire a year after purchase.
TABE does. Okay.
TABE does. CASAS does not, but
It's not. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, but um, I'll back up because in May of 2022 is when the whole state found out about the tests expiring after a year. And there was a lot of conversations that were had with DRC staff about like really large purchases that were made and concerns that agencies were having that they were going to lose tests because, you know, looking at our annual usage. And since those conversations happened, they allowed programs who weren't using tests that had been distributed by MDE to put them back into the MDE account if local programs weren't going to use them. But then, I mean, for example, Metro North, I think we bought 9,000 tests and our program is only using about 1,500 to 2,000 a year. Even though our tests are older than a year past the date of when we purchased them, we're using them regularly and they haven't taken them away, thank goodness, and hopefully they won't. But that being said, I'll quick look back over here at the chat. Did that answer your question, Jamie?
Yep.
Okay.
One of them, definitely. Yep.
Okay.
And then Linda, Astrid, maybe you can help kind of triage some of those
Yeah,
questions.
so
that
just
have
a
come
couple
in.
of other questions, Linda. One was just a clarification that whether staff that are administering eCASAS tests need 3 accounts, SID, TOPS Pro, and eCASAS testing account. Is that correct?
Well, it is to a certain extent. It would depend on locally. If you have that same staff that wants or needs access to SID, if that's part of their work assignment, then yeah, they would need access to SID. They likely would, depending on with delivering tests, they would need to be looking back to see if there was any past testing that needed to be considered based on what needed to be delivered to them.
Okay.
Alternate version. And then again, they may need a TOPS Pro account if you want them to be able to look into TOPS Pro for doing any troubleshooting for students, or if you would have them creating student records. Yes.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
Another question, this one from Jamie. Is there an electronic CASAS tool that analyzes student test scores, even if they take a paper and pencil? They're looking for a quick way to figure out where to start studying, even if they have to input data.
So that's been asked before. CASAS's recommendation is if you have the answer sheet and someone took a paper pencil test, the paper pencil test scores can be manually entered into an e-test in order to populate a diagnostic report. Yes.
Thank you.
But that's what would need to happen. Yes. Okay.
And I think those were the outstanding questions. If you had a question that didn't get asked, please go ahead and raise your hand and
Yes.
be unmute.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly interject. Is it okay, Angie, or I'm sorry, Linda, if Angie asked if I could, she can have a copy of the slides. Is it okay if I provide a PDF of your slides?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you get
Yep.
going. Sorry.
And I'll just look at my time of what I got left because I want to be able to allow questions too. So the last steps that I suggest is just, you know, start small. If you've got an enrollment test session and you have 1 or 2 people scheduled, try it with 1 or 2 people. There were different troubleshooting that we did it with staff. We created some fake student records, just like the SID team has. We have John Denver, we have Stevie Ray Vaughan, we have Jaja Gabor, I have John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. I think I have Captain Kangaroo. But just trying to deliver a test and having them log in to the system, just so that you can see what it looks like before you actually run a test session with 15 or 20 people. It's just much easier if you start small and just call it a pilot. I love the word pilot because then you're just trying it. But with the e-testing platform, when staff are logged in, they can see the progress of where a student is at and what test level that they're taking when they're signed into a test session on their device. And then once they're signed out, there's a test result window, and I could have embedded a slide with that, but I didn't want this slide deck to get too big. But it's so much better doing it with real data so that it makes sense, because all of these details sound intimidating until they're not. Until you're doing it live, you'll just wonder why you waited so long. I mean, I know that it was tough the first probably 2 months going through it, but now it's just, we're not on cruise control. I wouldn't say that. It's much easier, and we've really streamlined our processes here at Metro North. So, here's some background on when we started and when, what happened. So we completed all those going live steps. It took us over 2 months after our site got back from COVID, because we weren't doing e-testing before COVID. And then we just chose a few staff for the initial pilot. And I had a really great wingman who has since left Metro North, and I'm still sad, but provided me a ton of support, was willing to try new things, listened, and came up with some good documentation and steps and screenshots. And yeah, so we pilot tested ESL level 1 week, and then we did all of the ESL levels the following week. The Blaine location doesn't regularly use CASAS goals and goes to math. So we had historically just used life and work, reading and life and work listening with our English language learners, and now we're using STEPS. But we made them a lot of mistakes. There was early on, we thought we needed to create test sessions to deliver a specific test level and a specific test subject, but learned along the way that you don't have to do that. If there's test scores living in TOPS Pro, there's test sessions that you can fix the settings. And when you schedule somebody into that test session and they sign into that test session, it'll look in TOPS Pro for that test score, and it'll say, oh, they had a 6 or a 603 last time, and they'll get a 604 this time for their, or it's a 621 or a 622 based on whatever their score was last time. It'll keep them in the same level, but it'll give them the alternate version. So there was a lot of questions. There was a lot of mistakes that we made, but we figured things out. And then once we figured things out at the Blaine location, we ended up moving to the other 2 large sites, Brooklyn Center and Columbia Heights. Our Brooklyn Center site serves about 300 to 400 learners a year. The Blaine location is about 1,000 to 1,200, and so is the Columbia Heights location. But as of this week, we've got 21 support staff, primarily delivering it, that do intake, enrollment, and post-testing. We've added instructors to that pool, including our Elk River site coordinator and our Centennial site coordinator that deliver it. And then just within the last 2 months, we've got instructors that are being trained with additional support being on site just in case if they run into problems. But they've all taken the training for e-proctor and e-coordinator, and so they're proctoring their students that are in their class on site while they're testing. So we're currently delivering it at 6 sites using a variety of devices, a variety of station registration methods, variety of staffing utilized, and using it on site at workplace, like workplace education sites with Chromebooks that have an app installed by our Anoka Hennepin IT department in kiosk mode. And so if you have access to Chromebooks that can be installed. I think the Centennial location had it done within 2 hours when we told them that it was accessible, and they had a great IT department, so super helpful. So, other tips that I added here, just like I said, create some fake student test accounts so that you can kind of play with it. We have John Denver, Jaja Gabor, Stevie Ray Vaughan. One of the things that I've learned is if you use those fake student accounts, you just delete the test results from those records and then you can reuse them. John Denver is like, it's 5 ones in a row. Jaja Gabor is 11112. Tom Hanks is 11113. So we use badge IDs for students to log in. That seems to be the simplest method for login, or for student logging in. But then thinking about how many testing devices is your site going to need during an e-test session, like during enrollment. Do you cap your enrollment at 10 people, or do you cap it at 5? If you cap it at 5, then you would need 5 devices. They don't need to all be the same devices. We have, our Elk River site has 2 laptops and 2 desktops. That's what they have access to for their devices. So, and then think about how many devices your program would need during all site post testing. Blaine location has access to a lot of Chromebooks. The Blaine location does all site post testing in 1 day. Columbia Heights site does not have access to that many Chromebooks. They have some iPads and they have a lot of desktops. So their post testing is done over the course of a week for all of their classes. So just be thinking about those kind of logistical things. And then think about how much staff prep time do you need as you're getting ready for e-testing appointments. If you have a shortcut installed on your desktop computers, you'll need to launch that. If you have Chromebooks that you're using as their Wi-Fi that you need to log into, do you need to hook up external mice? We always give students that option because not everybody likes to use the mouse pads. If you're doing any headphone hookup, just make sure that you have access to the headphones and that you have time as you're plugging those into those devices. If you need new test sessions created, make sure you allow enough time for that, and then just launch and start your session. So some other things to consider, like whether you're delivering TABE online, think about what's your local site turnaround time with getting new intake paperwork prior to completing TABE online testing with new learners. Creating new student records in TABE online is very quick and it's easy. So you could potentially do a new student intake and TABE online testing on the same day. If you made sure that you looked in SID for any existing TABE 11-12 results, so you're not giving them the same version and the same level as they had last time. And then think about how and when your student records are getting created in DRC. DRC does not have the capability of importing student records, so all records that are created in DRC all have to be manually created. But again, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, that's really all you need. And then if you're going to put in their SID badge ID, if you're ever going to be downloading test results from their site and you want to upload those directly into SID, they'll need to have their badge ID that's from SID in their DRC record. So think about what TABE subjects you would want to deliver at intake. One of the things that when Metro North first launched in 2019, we were delivering math online only. We were doing paper pencil for the reading, but we did math online. But after coming back from COVID, we do reading and math both. So think about who your point person is that you trust enough to create your test sessions in DRC. I know that there are some programs who just create an individual test session for each individual. You can do that. Just think about the volume of students that you're serving, and if you need to create ongoing test sessions. So, and then who is adding those students into those test sessions that are created? And then when the student arrives for the testing delivery, or if you're doing it the same day, when are those test tickets getting printed? Because when a student's record is created in DRC, their username is always going to be the same, but their password will change every time they take a different test session test. And so that's, those are things that you need to be thinking about. And then think about how and when you're gonna, like which subjects you're gonna be delivering during post-testing. Just think about all those above. We've got good processes in place at all of our locations for post-testing. We've got point people and we rotate it. We have staff dually trained to do all site post-testing, and they've created lots of spreadsheets on who gets what, who needs to be in what session and so forth. And it's organized really well, but if you're doing post-testing once a month and you're looking at who's eligible for post-testing, how are you going to manage that and just keep track of that? Love Google spreadsheets myself, and I love everything Excel too. So, all right. And then these are things to think about with CASA's e-testing. A lot of the same questions. Just think about your turnaround time with getting new intakes prior to e-testing. One of the practices that I remember Alexandria program sharing is they're doing same day testing with students when they're doing enrollment. One of the practices that they've used is they have the student create their own record in TOPS Pro, and they can. But my recommendation based on like lower level speaking and lower level reading English language learners, a staff should be guiding them through creation of a new student record to make sure that they're putting the correct content in there, because that will be their record. And they can be edited and updated if they needed to be, but that's the practice that Alexandria did. And then how and when are student records getting created in TOPS Pro, like before you're delivering them. So you can do it manually. Like I said, we did it for a year before we knew better and learned and worked with CASA's tech support and the SID team. But you can do bulk imports and exports. So think about which test series and subjects are going to be delivered during intake with your e-testing. You can do reading, you can do listening, you can do both. And then which series and subjects are going to be delivered after post-testing is done. So, and I said this earlier, this applies to both TABE and CASA's online testing. Just start small. Try it with 1 or 2 learners. Run a pilot session with fake students and just consider staffing and spaces that you're going to use when you're delivering the e-testing, and then make arrangements for just some consistent scheduling practices to deliver it. So just set up a process and then tweak it and stick to it and adjust accordingly, after a month or 2 months. If it's working, great. If it's not, think about where things are catching and what you need to improve on. So there's some future talks that Marty and I have been asked to consider for like coffee talks, and Jeff Galbaby and I from Metro East did a CASA's e-testing session for the support staff conference of just things that we learned, and a lot of the information from today's session was included in that session for support staff, but we're just going to keep it open so that folks who are already using e-testing can come in and talk and offer their ideas and share what worked great for their program, because it's not a one size fits all. You just have to figure out what works for your agency and your individual sites, because as you saw earlier, Metro North is not consistent across all of our sites with what we're delivering for e-testing. We are consistent across all of our sites for our learner entry forms getting created, but that's pretty much it. So another future topic is going to be remote online testing, because in the middle of October with the CASA's, they called it the migration. It was an update to the security system with CASA's, and prior to the middle of October, the option for remote testing was to deliver it one-on-one with folks if they didn't have a device that they could use. And the devices that they needed to use would be either a PC with updated system requirements, or if they had a Chromebook that had kiosk mode added. So it was rather limited, but that's not the case anymore. The remote testing can be delivered on Macs, can be delivered on Windows devices, and can be delivered in with any Chromebooks now too. So there's a secure URL that they provided. Metro North is going to pilot test it next week with a very small group, and we're testing it, using it with our GED prep learners with CASAS goals. So stay tuned for that. And then we also want, we want to have a group together in Metro South. That would be lovely if any of you could join us, but with TOPS Pro and the user reporting that comes out of that. Locally, I'm still working on navigating building classes because of our ongoing enrollment. We don't have managed enrollment here, and I've got a really good wingman that's trying to help me. But if we could get folks to join and share what's working for them and how they came about using it, that would be great. And then if there's a big enough interest with TABE Online and remote online testing, we can have a session on that too. I just threw that in there too. I know that folks that are using it are comfortable using it, and I've shared a lot of the documents that I've pulled together for staff here at Metro North about online and remote testing too. So if you'd like, if all of this is information overload and you'd just like to talk through some of your ideas, or you want some additional support, just reach out, because I've helped a lot of programs just sharing some of the lessons learned at Metro North. I'm willing to offer suggestions and practices and documentation that we've developed here to help support staff, but I'm willing to help. So just, keep that in mind. And then I think that might be my last slide. It is my last slide.
Thank you, Linda.
All right.
I'm going to direct your attention to a question from the chat. So is there anything else I should specify in order to ask our tech department to install kiosk mode on Chromebooks?
I will add the system requirement document that your tech support will need to that resource document that I have in that folder.
Great. And I did add a link to your slides in that document as well for people.
Okay.
And then Cindy Swift says she'd be happy to join the.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do. Yes.
So at this point, we'd like to open the floor and ask other people's experiences with implementing e-testing. Where are you in the process? What support could you use? What puzzles are you puzzling over? We'll just open it up here. I'm sure if you are struggling with something, you are not the only one. So
well, yeah. And this is what Marty and I ran into when we knew people were using it, but people aren't always willing to share. And there's a lot of details in that. And I hope that programs really consider not to get overwhelmed with all the details, because just keep in mind, TOPS Pro it's very complex, but it's designed for the state of California for their data system. And Minnesota is using it to deliver testing and to pull results. So we don't need all of the other tools and things that they need, but there's a teacher portal. There's lots of different reporting features that are in there. You just need to know how the steps.
I wonder if you want to stop sharing just so we can see if people want to come on camera. Jill, you unmuted. Is that a sign? You got something you want to share?
Yeah, I have a question. I saw that there was an update to the CASAS e-testing, and I haven't done the next step. Was that pretty easy to switch to the update with like I had 6 Chromebooks ready to go for testing, and then they said there's a big update. Was that pretty easy? I haven't even contacted my tech person yet. So
yeah, the update was really easy, and it likely is just the difference of updating a URL that's in the that's in the app, Because with our Chromebooks for Anoka Hennepin, the IT department had installed, there wasn't anything different that needed to be done,
Oh, okay.
but
I'll have to try it and see.
yeah. Okay, I'm trying to get out of this window. All right,
I have another quick question.
yeah.
So I have a number of EL students who are ABE level reading. Can we give them CASAS listening and have CASAS goals reading? That works, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's my last question.
Yeah, well, and the only thing that would affect that, and I'm gonna close out of this window and I can hopefully, everybody doesn't see all of my windows anymore, do they?
Linda, you could just stop sharing on the Zoom bar.
I thought I was, oh, there it is. Okay, what am I doing here? Technology makes our lives easier, doesn't it? Okay, stop sharing. There it is. It's a big red button. Ta-da!
Okay.
So, and this was for Jill too, I should say this. I'm gonna turn this off just a second. I'm just gonna shut this screen. Okay. So just keep in mind, Jill, if you test in steps listening, but you also test them with goals reading, that individual that has both of those tests will likely be placed into the English language level, or so in ESL 1 through 6 based on what their test results are, because SID will always pick the lowest test level that an individual has taken. So if they took an ABE test and they took an ESL test, when you're looking at your levels and outcome table, that's where they will show up, is in your ESL levels.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Or other tips folks want to share? I know there are some more experienced online testers in the group.
And Clark, I know we talked briefly when I was at Literacy Minnesota, and was it February for the CASAS implementation training? But does Literacy Minnesota have a CASAS e-test account or a TOPS Pro account yet that you know of?
We don't know. It's
Okay.
very much on my list of things to explore.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
Well, reach out because we can help you get started. You've got your implementation training done.
Yeah, we
Just
do. Thank you.
If you place an order for 100 tests, then they'll guide you through the next steps.
You've made it much less intimidating in
Okay.
this webinar.
Well, good. Was my goal, so. And Penny, how is reporting going down in Albert Lee?
Oh, she may have stepped away. Penny, if
She
you're
stepped
there, let
away.
us know. Other questions, or how's it going? Other things people want to
I'm
chat
sorry,
about?
were you guys talking to me?
No.
We were hyping.
It was. I was wondering how reporting is going for you.
Oh, hey, good. So if anyone wants to know, we had quite the ride. So we found out that our TOPS Pro thing they gave us the wrong, we were supposed to have more access than what we did. And Julie and I, my data person, was trying to figure out, okay, this isn't working. Then we reached out to Linda and she helped, and then we did a lot of stuff. So it was a lot of work, but my data person loves it, loves it, loves it. It is a lot of work getting started, but now Julie
Yes.
loves it because we're not doing any manual entry, and we're not that big, but it's really nice to not have to worry about it. So we're still figuring out TOPS Pro a little bit, but now that we actually have the access that we need,
Yes.
it actually, it's very, and we've even figured out how to add students. We figured out how to run reports.
Mhm.
We have really figured all of that out. So people who are just starting, you will get there. I'm not gonna lie, we devoted a couple full days to this. So don't
Yes.
think it's gonna be a 10-minute thing.
2 months. We did 2 months of like trying to get all the logistical stuff figured out. in that resource document, there is a document that has, there's steps to follow to create a student record manual in TOPS Pro in that document. That was from my wingman back in 2021. So if you wanted to manually record them, there's no reason that they have to be imported, but if you've got some volume of students, importing and exporting is just very slick, and it saves a lot of staff time, saves the potential for data getting entered.
I just noticed Cindy's comment. We still are having trouble doing the teacher portal. We tried
Okay.
having our teachers get at least one and it has not worked. So we're doing something wrong with that.
Okay. Well, and I think there's a teacher portal training that CASAS is going to be doing, and I don't remember when it is, but I don't know if I can get out to the CASAS website. I just was listening to a webinar this morning from a trainer meeting that was like a week and a half ago, and I believe they've reformatted the website a little bit to be able to find things easier, they said. But there will be, I know there's a CASAS updates webinar next week on Wednesday. So, and if you want to hold on for a second, I'm going to see if I can do this without messing up my Zoom. And I'll see if I can find that document for your tech people too, Elizabeth, okay? Okay, CASAS, www. I think it's under the reserve a seat for our next webinar on the main page. If I go to that, no, that's not where it is. Maybe they haven't updated it yet. Getting started with e-testing. No, not super easy to find on this website. I know that they're doing some work behind the scenes to make it more organized. The landing page doesn't give me good guidance as to where to find it. So I'm gonna Google CASAS tech requirements for e-testing with books.
I also just wanted to tell people that don't feel bad if you read that TOPS Pro thing like 60 times and you still don't understand one thing they wrote, because we had to, Julie and I read it and I called Linda. So please, I just wanted everyone to know that everyone is very intelligent on this thing. Do not think, but TOPS Pro, I don't know who writes these things, but it's not someone who has a normal conversation with people. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay. So, and this is why I say to folks here in Minnesota, just keep in mind that that is so, like, all the information that they embed in those support documents is really designed for the broader users that are using it in California. Because yesterday I had done some screenshots of some of their support documents, and I was trying to help coach our GED prep staff into being confident enough and delivering CASAS remote testing. Keep in mind, they already deliver TABE online remote. So they're seasoned remote testers, but the screenshots that I put in, I'm like, okay, that's an extra step that they don't need to take. Okay, that's an extra step that they didn't need to take. And so I just scaled it back. I went out and took screenshots of the little images that they had put in, and then I typed in my own language to remove some of those additional steps that aren't required. And I've found that, like, then it's not as intimidating if they don't see all of the extra stuff. They're like, what step am I missing? Why does it not clear to me what I'm supposed to be doing here? The link that I just put in the chat is the system requirements, and if you put that in and open up a new tab and click on that, it has all of the different system requirements for each specific type of device that you may potentially be able to get your hands on for delivering e-testing. So the documents that are in there are the ones that your IT department needs. And I'm not an IT person. I've learned to be I can get things done, but I still need a lot of support from my IT department. But I've learned a lot with navigating the IT of this, just with having worked with how many different districts to do this too. So if you can get devices that you can have access to that you can use regularly and people aren't taking them out of your space to use them for other purposes, yeah. And then there's also station registration that you'll need to do a one-time thing, but that information I believe is in the PowerPoint too, that has station registration. Station registration is a one-time test that you have to do to any device that's going to be delivering e-testing. And you basically just have to name whatever the device is. So you could call it desktop 1, desktop 2, you could call it Chromebook, 10, Chromebook 11, you could call it whatever you want. Noka Hennepin was smart when they gave us Chromebooks. And we have little stickers on the back of ours and they say Community Ed 100762. So that's what I named our Chromebooks. So I know when I'm delivering a test session and I put that device into the test session, it's going to deliver whatever the test session is named and whatever the settings are in there. So it could potentially deliver a CASA Steps reading test, or it could deliver a CASA Steps listening test. And that'll make more sense after you get your test sessions created and you do 1 or 2 tests. It totally makes sense. So I can tell you one of the crazy things that Metro North did. I think we did it during offsite testing. We registered all of our devices into every single test session, and we were delivering testing to levels 1 through 4. And we put everybody in, or we put the first test session that we launched, when everybody logged in, everybody took a 621 test, because that was the test session that we launched. Even though students were signing in using their badge ID and everything, it was ugly. It was just bad. So everybody got a 621, even if they were in ESL level 4. So lesson learned. We have Chromebook sets in each specific classroom now, and that's how we register them into each test session, if that makes sense. So does anybody else have any questions? I see that people are.
I'm just watching the chat. Anything else? Astrid, did I miss anything?
No.
And then you're welcome. if
See.
anyone- I don't see anything, but if
Yeah.
folks do have something
Chime
else they'd
in.
like to bring up with Linda, feel free to unmute and ask your question. It's a good opportunity.
And Cindy, I haven't met you yet. You should turn your camera on so I can see you.
I'll drop
Happy to
the
meet you.
resources doc one more time in case people lost track of that.
Mm. And Pam said you're going to be delivering at the Duluth program shortly. Awesome. That is great. That is great.
Any last words there, Linda? Otherwise, I'll stop the recording. We'll stick around for a couple minutes.
I'm good.
All right, give me 1 second, Karen.